Hi, thanks again for tuning in to Sin's workshop. I hope everyone's having a great day. I'm having an okay day. I just dropped something and it hit my glass, so I kind of cracked it right there. This is like the second replacement for my glass. My cats broke the first one. And now I've cracked the second. So, back to Etsy it is. Anyway, today we're going to be talking about Thorn by Intisar Khanani, published by Harper Teen. This is an okay book. It's a retelling of Goose Girl by the Brothers Grimm. So if you're a fan of the Brothers Grimm or fairy tales, I'm sure you've heard at least one rendition of the Goose Girl. Princess is demoted, and then she's the Goose Girl. She eventually does get her throne back. So the story, it does follow that same formula. I think it's a little hard to get into. Most of the opening is really just about Princess Alira and her environment. It's a very toxic environment for her. So I do have to say there are some trigger warnings if you are someone who has suffered from abuse, because the entire opening, she's abused mentally, physically, emotionally by both her mother and her brother. Pretty much for a stupid reason. Her brother was supposed to marry this chick, but this chick framed a servant for stealing, and Princess Alira, does highlight her good heart. She couldn't let the servant be punished for what this noble lady did. So she was honest. Problem is, she was honest in front of pretty much the entire court, humiliating this girl, destroying her prospects with marrying the prince, and pretty much destroying her prospects in the court. So I say that because it's important to the novel. It's important for the plot, because it's that girl who takes her place as the princess. They sort of switch faces, because that girl makes a deal with this evil fairy who tried to corrupt Princess Alira. She's pretty much incorruptible. She has a very good heart, but she really is a prisoner of her own fear, and it's understandable. But the whole opening, it takes a long time to develop the actual story, and I think that's where my problem lies with it. It takes a long time to develop the story, so you're not really sure what the direction of the story is going to be. That being said, I do think it is a good story, but it is a little long. It feels long. There are some books that are long, that you can read with ease. You just get lost in the premise and the story and the writing. This is not one of those stories, unfortunately. That's not to say it's a bad story. It is a good one, and I will tell you why, but it was a little bit exhausting to read because it felt so long, and I think that's where my problem lies with this novel and why I couldn't give it anything above 3 stars, because I just wanted the story to just move on and progress already. That last quarter of the novel is really good, but I think the first 3 quarters of it, it borders on tedious. I understand it though. She is going through a lot of trouble. The author, she's going through a lot of trouble to develop the world. So it is very rich. It is very abundant. The reader can understand the world. I think she just spends a little too much time with it. From the beginning, I understood this world. I was able to imagine it and picture it. She spends too much time doing it. She drags it out. And then when she becomes the Goose Girl, when she's finally the Goose Girl, it takes another long time to develop her character. From the beginning, she sort of has this very meek voice. Once again, understandable. She is a victim of abuse. Lots of abuse for years. So she is a very submissive person. So it does take her a while to extract herself from that prison, that cage that she's been in, thinking, oh yeah, she has to be a prisoner, because that's all anyone sees her as. But that's actually incorrect. She doesn't have to be a prisoner. And that's where it just starts to drag again. I will say this, even though it drags, it does highlight Khanani's interest in character development. She really does spend a lot of time developing this character. She just goes very well with making sure she escapes the fear on her own. So, I thought that was interesting. I thought it was good character development. I think it is very empowering to read, because if you were ever a victim of abuse, if you were ever mistreated, physically, mentally, emotionally, this is really a good thing to pick up, because it shows that there is an escape, and it highlights the strength she has, because as she grows, she starts to stand up for herself a little bit more. And those moments where she stands up to that rotten girl who switched their faces, she those are actually empowering moments. They're those moments where you read and you're like, good for you kind of moments. And I really did enjoy them, because I'm like, yeah, you put her in her place. Don't let her tell you anything. So I do like that. It does have a strong voice to it. It does have strong characterization. And it does deal with an important issue of how to escape abuse. How to find the strength through it all. How to make sure you don't lose your goodness and turn into the monster who was abusing you. Because that's sort of how some abusers are born. They sort of get lost in the anger that they have built up inside them, that they become abusers themselves. Not all, not all, but some, and it's very sad, because it's just a repeating cycle. It's a cycle of violence that just doesn't end. But Alira is able to break that cycle. She is able to highlight mercy, and she doesn't lose that goodness within herself. So I think that's really important. Another thing I think is important is this novel does deal with justice and revenge. Everyone always wants justice, for something, but when does it cross the line and turn into just revenge? So I think that's a very important question for this novel. I mean, you have the fairy, her mother was brutalized when she was younger, and she was a witness to it, so she's spent centuries trying to get justice for her mother. But she already punished the man who hurt her mother. So it's more of a cycle of revenge. She's getting revenge. It stopped being justice, because now she's punishing everyone related to him because they're related to him. That's not justice anymore. That's revenge. And then, Alira as Thorn, because she does change her name. Obviously, she can't go by Princess Alira if she's no longer Princess Alira. She goes by Thorn. She makes friends with some of the servants, and one of her friends, is victimized and left for dead in an alley. Alira goes to this thief. He takes care of a lot of the orphan children in the city, but he is still a thief. She tried going to the right authorities to get justice. They didn't do anything. So she went and to him to get justice, and she saw the justice that they enacted, and it was quite brutal. So I'm not saying they didn't deserve it, but it does make her question, her own mentality, with Did she want this? Did she want this kind of brutality to happen to them? At that moment, she did, because she wanted revenge when she was denied justice. Again, she tried to go through the right authorities to get justice. They didn't do anything. I think that's something we can all relate to in society. You try to do the right thing, try to file protocol, nothing happens. So then you try to get justice where you can, and it turns into revenge. So it's just something that's lingering in her mindset throughout the novel. And I think that's another important topic. When does justice stop being justice and when does it become revenge? It's important to keep the two separate. It's not always possible. We are humans. We are fallible creatures. We're not androids. We are not wholly objective. But I think it's important to keep that in the back of our heads as we think about enacting justice. So I do think it was a good book. I do think it talked about a lot of important issues. My issue with it really is just it takes too long to develop, and once it does develop, it does drag out a little bit. So it is a little exhausting to read. At 512 pages. I just read a book that was over 200 pages, not over 200, over 900 pages, and that one didn't feel exhausting at all. Sometimes a book just, captures your attention and you're lost in it. I wish I could say this is one of those books, because I don't want to deter anyone from reading it. I do want everyone to give it a shot, because I do think it's a good book. It does have really good characterization. It does have strong messages within it. So do have to support this book for its message. But I can only give it 3 stars just because personally to me it was just exhausting to read. I liked the ending. I thought it was a really good ending. But once again, I think I've already said this enough. It does drag. So once again, this is Thorn by Intisar Khanani, published by Harper Teen. Please remember to check out this book from your local library if it's available, and if not, please remember to support it by purchasing it from your local bookseller. Please remember to support your local bookseller and not just go onto Amazon. Amazon's got enough business. It's the bookstores that need it more. So once again, have a great rest of your day, and as always, happy reading.